it's time to sell that house. Well, you could say one thing, hey, we have title insurance, and title insurance protects us all, but property can be conveyed with open permits. So again, sometimes the lien search company does not pick it up, and I'll explain to you what a municipal lien search is in this discussion. And sometimes the buyer signs a hold harmless. So a lot of these things, a lot of these items, they're basically left over. So this is when a contractor pulled for a permit, they didn't finish the job, or they didn't finish the job to plans and can't close it out. So we're going to cover number one, we're going to cover open and expired permits, which are one thing. We're going to cover code violations, and we're going to cover liens. So basically code violations could be anything. Property maintenance, work without a permit, whatever. Sometimes the city, after a long time, or the municipality, the county, when they get to a certain degree, they go ahead and lien the property. So they lien the property, and they basically say, hey, we're going to start fining you per day until you bring the property into compliance. And then they allow you to negotiate that lien once the property's in compliance. Does that make sense? So these could be with commercial, residential properties, industrial, multifamily, and throughout every jurisdiction. And all the cities and the counties handle these things in a different way. They all handle them in a completely different way and different processes. And even at the same time, if I did the same thing in Doral last year, they resolve it differently this year. Because the building official changes, or the mayor changes, or they change some type of hold harmless after, the disaster in Surfside and Champlain Towers. They don't want to use an engineer's letter. Now they want, for example, for a 40-year recertification, which was the context of that, they were not enforcing those, which we've read in the newspaper. So the cities were not enforcing the law. The law is to get a 40-year inspection and then 10 years thereafter, only for condominiums and office buildings, large buildings to the public, not single family. And so what engineers were rubber stamping things, boards were sitting on things, so people were not doing the correct life safety things. So the reason why I get into that context is because I'm called out with our engineers to come do 40-year inspections at properties, and then every 10 years thereafter. So if the municipality sends you a letter saying you're due for your 40-year recertification and you have to get an engineer out there, and you don't do that within 180 days, they're going to give you per day fines and potentially lien the property. And if the property is, as we've seen in North Miami and some areas, if the property is in unsafe condition, they will red tag the building, they'll vacate the building. The fire marshal can put a red tag on it, pull the meter can, when you see types of rebar coming out of the building and all this stuff. Does anyone have any questions so far before I start the presentation?
Give us your examples. Like if anybody has cases that they've dealt with now or in the past, this would be a good opportunity to kind of get some clarity as to why that may have happened during that process. Why was your closing possibly held up because of that? So this is a good time. You can think back or maybe just have any questions. Ben's here to go ahead
and again, just so you guys know, Mei Ling keeps in communication with me all the time. So for example, if a file has an issue with it or they need to evaluate a deficiency, we don't just make up the number. We want to make sure the buyer and the seller are protected, and ultimately the realtor maintains the relationship. So if everything's done right, these things should not affect your closings. And again, you don't want to find out about any of these problems outside the as-is inspection period, because then all the as-is contract says that the seller has to cooperate. It doesn't say who pays for these things. So we as realtors, we've been trained, if you represent the buyer, you put the language, the seller's to close open permits and code violations at closing at own expense. But you still don't want to find out about them. They might delay the closing. They might change the rate lock for the buyer. And if you represent the seller, you want to do your due diligence. Like, for example, I had these Kai's agents in Doral. they pulled a build fax. They went on Doral's website. They went to see when they took the listing. They didn't do a lien search, but they, some of the municipalities have public portals. They went on the public portal. They found out that there was an open Miami-Dade County permit from '92, and then when the seller purchased the property, he did a renovation and tried to close the pool permit, which is this thing right here. And again, they're just listing the property. So they're now giving the time to fix these things. These are problems from '92 that went over from 2013 and 14. So when the new owner bought the property, he tried to resolve the issues, and those contractors duped him, or the city gave him confusion or problems. So now we need to pull the records, find out what went on, see how to close the permit. And again, you can close with an open permit, but the seller, again, as long as it's not FHA or VA or there's some sort of underwriting issue, but the buyer's going to want some and then more money because there's unanticipated outcomes. We don't know all the things that are in compliance, meaning I know most of the things, but the buyer to inherit these problems, they're going to want a lot of money, especially when it involves the pool area and interior renovation, and you're stepping into windows and doors and kitchen and bathrooms. Things that are much easier, like if it's just a window permit or a roof permit, those are a little bit different. But on wide scope projects, those have to be evaluated correctly.
So that's not going to reveal on the title search, however, on the inspection.
That information, they have access to build facts, and they went on the county's website, and they did kind of what we call like a pencil search, if you will. That's done in the industry sometimes. Wholesalers, investors do these things. They go on the county's website or the city's website. The problem with that is, and I used to work in Weston, and Broward County was the building department before then. The problem is not all of the information is on the public portals. So you might only have a database of 2022 all the way back to 2013. And then everything before that, that's not on the public portal. Or you guys aren't required to be expert for this. You guys are the relationship managers. Or it was a previous jurisdiction. Before Weston incorporated, even after they incorporated, Broward County was handling their... So these are the things that a lien search is going to get us. And again, I have agents, before they take a listing, some of them like to pull a lien search when they take the listing, just to see, hey, you know what, is there any problems? Lien searches cost, $150 to $200 to $250 to do. The only reason why they're that expensive is because the municipalities charge a fee for it. And they have a turnaround time. So you guys have the ability, look, this is, for me personally, I'd rather take the photographs with my iPhone of the listing and invest money in the lien search. But again, I'm not telling you guys how to market your property or do your business. I'm just telling you these situations that I have to clean up a lot outside the inspection period, 10 days before the closing. The closing has to be extended, or we have to do an escrow holdback, and it's not fun at that point. Question?
Yeah, on that lien search, you're only going to see code violations that have been decided by the authority.
That's correct.
Anything that was done without permits, but nobody knows about it.
That's a great question. So on a lien search, you're only going to see what the property's been cited for. You're not going to see unpermitted work. It's a single-family house, for example. Many people do kitchen and bathroom renovations without a permit because the permit and the plans cost more than the kitchen. So again,